What's up guys, it's Tommy here and welcome to a brand new football news video, and this is a bombshell that has been dropped because Everton could be points deducted and relegated from the Premier League after Leeds United and Burnley threatened legal action against the Premier League, because Everton reported earlier this year in 3 years a loss of £371.8 million, and the maximum loss that you can have is £105 million. Of course, because of COVID, the Premier League has also said that the clubs can report another £180 million losses, but that's still, Everton are still, even with the COVID losses on top of the losses that you are allowed, the 105 million, they are still almost £100 million over the maximum limit. And this file was filed before Everton beat Crystal Palace 3-2 in an absolute mayhem game, and I will talk about the pitch invasion a little bit later in this video. The big question is, will the Premier League let them get away with it, or will they come down hard on Everton and punish them? What should be done in this matter? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinion. This seems dodgy, and the accounts that Everton published, there were a few eyebrows raised among the Premier League clubs. But what I don't find correct is, why didn't Leeds United, Burnley, Norwich, Watford, all the clubs who are in and around Everton in the league, why didn't they file the complaints immediately? Why are Leeds United and Burnley only filing this on the brink of relegation? Of course they want to save their own interests and their own backside, because if Everton get even 2, 3, 5, 4, 5 points deduction, by the way, for breaching financial fair play rules there is a 10-point deduction mandatory according to Premier League rules, that will definitely 100% relegate Everton. So this is a huge deal, and I wanted to make a video about this. So if you appreciate this, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So both Leeds United and Burnley believe that Everton have breached financial fair play rules, so they have filed an official complaint to the Premier League, and the Premier League now has to do something, because if they don't, then Leeds United and Burnley will sue the Premier League for not keeping the financial fair play rules. But also, I think there is a huge elephant in the room, if you like. Manchester City. Liverpool would probably have 4 Premier League titles if Manchester City didn't artificially inflate their sponsorship deals, and if Man City played by the rules, Liverpool would have at least 3, maybe even 4 Premier League titles. Leeds and Burnley have summoned an emergency meeting, by the Premier League on Monday. So that is after the Premier League finishes. So either Leeds United or Burnley will get relegated, and then imagine if the Premier League punishes Everton with a points deduction. This could be absolutely massive, and then Everton could sue the Premier League in a response. So this is a very, very delicate case. Everton stand accused of financial doping because over £100 million of their spending they had attributed it to the impact of COVID through claims related to lost transfer revenue and sponsorship deals, whereas other clubs limited their COVID claims to missing gate receipts. So this is the problem. Everton basically said that they didn't get as much money from sponsorship deals because of COVID, they didn't get as much money from player sales because of COVID, while other clubs, being more honest, they only said that the COVID losses were, not having fans in the stadium. So Everton were pretty liberal with their accounting and with their, COVID claims towards the Premier League. So just to compare, Leeds United have said that £24 million of their losses were due to COVID. Newcastle United said that £40 million were due to losses to COVID. Everton, do you know how much money they claimed they lost to COVID? £170 million. That's a huge difference. I mean, that's more than 100 million more than the other clubs are claiming. Absolutely crazy. And an Everton spokesman said this: "We have worked closely with the Premier League to make sure we are compliant and we are comfortable that we have complied with the rules. External auditors have told us what we can and cannot claim against the pandemic. If they want to take legal action, then they can do so by all means. They are referring to Burnley and Leeds United. So Everton are saying, take us to court, take the Premier League to court. We are ready. This is absolutely crazy. And I think Everton shouldn't be able to get away with breaking the financial fair play rules. They spent so much money in the past 5 years, wasting most of it on players who are not good enough. I mean, how can a club report a loss of £372 million, and yet, even though they spent so much money, they are staying up by the skin of their teeth? It's absolutely scandalous how badly Everton are run. And it's no surprise that they have reported this amount of losses, because the amount of chaos that is in that club is absolutely crazy. And the Daily Mail revealed that Everton's relegation rivals were preparing to take legal action due to, of course, Everton being well over the limit. So the maximum that you can lose without COVID in the normal Premier League financial fair play rules in 3 years, 105 million. And then the Premier League said you can lose an additional 180 million over this 3-year period because of COVID. And a lot of clubs have taken that very honestly and very seriously, and they stayed within those losses. But a lot of clubs have taken it quite liberally, and they were exceeding that, and they said they probably thought the Premier League will give them some leeway because of COVID, and there were no fans in the stadiums for almost a full season if you add up all the months. But still, Everton shouldn't be well over that limit. So if you add up the 105 and 180, that's 285 million. And Everton reported losses of 372 million. So they are almost 100 million pounds over the normal limit plus the COVID limit as well. So this doesn't feel right. And Leeds United and Burnley have stayed within the financial fair play rules. So Everton are getting an unfair advantage if they exceed this limit by almost 100 million. And that's not right, that's wrong. And the Premier League should punish Everton. But the problem is the Premier League are not really very strict with these financial fair play rules. They have been investigating Manchester City for 3 years now without actually punishing Manchester City, because the Premier League doesn't really honestly very much care about the financial fair play rules. It's in their best interest to let clubs and owners spend vast amounts of money, because it makes the Premier League more competitive, it makes the brand of the Premier League better, and if more big players are signed by even clubs like Everton, who are nowhere near competing at the top of the Premier League, that makes the league stronger. And also Everton are a pretty big club with not a global fan base, but a pretty decent fan base in England and in the United Kingdom. It's in the Premier League's interest to let Everton spend a lot of money without actually punishing them. And of course Leeds United are a huge club, but Burnley are not that big of a club compared to a Leeds United or Everton. So I would be absolutely shocked if the Premier League decided to deduct points from Everton and kick them out of the Premier League, as they should, because Everton clearly breached financial fair play rules, and the mandatory punishment for that, as I said, is a 10 points deduction. But the Premier League's, the brand of the Premier League wants Everton to stay in the league and wants like smaller clubs like Burnley to get relegated, and the more big clubs are in the Premier League and the more money that they spend, the better it is for the Premier League. That's just how the brand of the Premier League works, and I don't agree with this. I think the rules should apply to everyone, and if somebody breaks the rules like Man City or Everton, they should get punished. And also what is a problem is that Everton didn't spend all this money on just infrastructure. First they spent a lot on players. In the last 3 years, look at Everton's transfer dealings. They spent in the last 5 years close to 500 million pounds net spend on players. And if Everton spent a lot of money on their infrastructure, if they were building a new stadium. They want to build a new stadium, but at the moment that's not progressing at all. And if they spent a lot of money on infrastructure, that would be a different story. But because they spent the vast majority of this money on players, and first they spent it on players, and then they spent some money on infrastructure as well, on their training ground and other things, then this is a problem. And this needs to be investigated by an independent investigation. And the truth should be made public, whatever the outcome. But the Premier League cares about their brand too much. They have been investigating Manchester City behind closed doors for the last few years. Do you hear anything about that investigation, what they found? No. And that's not a coincidence. The Premier League is not a very honest, truthful, transparent organization either. So I don't really have that much faith in them doing the right thing and punishing clubs like Everton, like Man City, who breach financial fair play rules. And Everton should be also punished for the pitch invasion. I mean, Patrick Vieira was goaded into defending himself by a crazy, absolutely mental Everton fan, and it's a miracle that somebody didn't get seriously hurt. I mean, Billy Sharp was headbutted in another pitch invasion after the playoff semi-final between Nottingham Forest and Sheffield United, which was absolutely disgraceful. And there are, in every fan base, there are a few absolute lunatics, aggressive people who want to just attack the opposition. And I mean, Everton don't have a rivalry with Crystal Palace. They are not their relegation rivals. They are not even their rivals in the classic sense. And Crystal Palace had really nothing to play for. Why on earth are you goading Patrick Vieira and shouting insults into his face from this close, shoving a camera in his face as well, and you expect to get away with it? And the Everton fan was such a little scared bunny when he saw that Patrick Vieira won't just stand there and take it, and rightfully so. If you do that on the street, if you assault somebody on the street verbally, go in his face and shout insults into his face and shove a camera in somebody's face, the person is justified to get to defending himself. And Patrick Vieira kicked the fan's leg, which of course I don't condone that. I don't condone any violence, but Patrick Vieira should defend himself, and he should just push the fan away and say, leave me alone. And so many Everton fans were just acting like absolute lunatics after the game. They celebrated like they won the Premier League, which is absolutely incredible. And also, this would push English football back maybe to the dark ages, because in the 80s there were fences up in all stadiums, and the fans were not allowed to be anywhere near the football players. So we made a lot of progress in English football in the past 30 years, but that progress could be reversed by some absolute moron minority fans, absolute morons who run on the pitch after a game. Celebrate your team's victory, but don't run on the pitch. Don't be an absolute idiot, because that ruins it for everybody else. And also there is a serious danger that somebody might seriously hurt and injure, or maybe even kill an opposition player, an opposition manager, an opposition football fan. And this needs to stop, these football pitch invasions, and I think Everton should be punished for that as well. And a top police officer predicted actually that there will be barriers put in the stadiums again because of these morons, and that's such a shame to hear. But let's hope that the authorities make the right decisions on this, and also on the financial fair play breaches that Everton did. Let me know what they think in the comments below, and thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a nice day. See you later. Goodbye.